Greetings again from IAS. We are very pleased to have you to watch again our program today. We continue with a series on Uniting Diversity. That is a program that we have been producing here at IAS for a number of months now, and we have many other programs that we have filmed before. If you want to watch them, you can check that on YouTube. Today we have decided to approach something that is sensitive in many cultures, and that is taboos. What are the types of taboos that we have around the world? And how do we deal with them when we are in a multicultural setting? Today I have invited friends from Africa who will be sharing with us what they know from different parts of Africa. But before we start, I want to give a disclaimer that views expressed on this program don't reflect IAS. They are simply opinions of our program participants. So if you have any question, please do not send it to IAS. Send it to Uniting Diversity, and I'll be sharing with you the email address at the end of the program. But let's get started with our program by introducing everybody here on the program, starting with that side. Your name, where you come from, and what you're doing here at IAS.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan Amanya. I'm from Uganda, and I'm in the seminary doing PhD in the region.
Welcome, Pastor Dan.
Hello everybody, my name is Blessing Obaya. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm doing my PhD in education.
Welcome, Blessing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alaisa Mbiriri. I'm from Malawi, born in Zimbabwe. I'm a faculty in the public health department.
Well, that sounds already interesting. She's from Malawi, born in Zimbabwe. You'll hear a lot of things like this in subsequent programs. We have a lot of multicultural families here. Wonderful. Welcome, Dr. Alaisa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ruth Pondi. I'm from Kenya. I'm a former student of MPH in IAS.
Wonderful, Ruth. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Oswald Jairo. I come from Zimbabwe. I'm doing PhD religion, biblical studies.
Thank you so much, Pastor Oswald, and welcome. As you can see here, we have a representation of different countries of Africa. We have East Africa represented by Uganda, Pastor Dan. We have West Africa represented by Blessing from Nigeria. And we have the South. The two are from the southern part, Zimbabwe, and then one from the east. The north, we don't really have many students. I don't think we have any students from the north right now, like Libya, Algeria, and Tunisia. We don't have anybody from there at this point. But we have a representation of Africa. So let's get started with our first question. What are things done here at IAS that are considered or might be considered taboo in your own culture? Anyone?
Okay, I'm going to start. Okay, first of all, I can say that it is something that gave me a culture shock. In my country, when somebody knocks at the door, you're supposed to open, welcome them in, give them a seat or let them have a seat, then actually give something to eat or drink. That is when you get to know what has brought them. But I can say that I was a bit surprised when I came here. Somebody knocks at the door, you go to open for them, you ask them to come in, they don't want to come in. They tell you, I'll just talk to you from the door. But back at home, actually that is considered a taboo. If a woman who is married like me does that to one person, second person, the third person, in the rural setup, I'll be actually taken to the elders to get to know what is happening, that I don't allow people inside my house. I can say that.
Thank you so much. And these are things that we take for granted. You may come from one culture where that's perfectly fine. And to tell you the truth, I had the same experience when I moved to the United States. I had expected somebody to invite me in, and I didn't get that. And I know, I grew up in a culture like yours. It's like, did I do anything wrong? Why isn't that somebody didn't allow me in? And so I can definitely understand what is happening here. Let's hear from Pastor Oswald, since the microphone is here.
Now, here at IAS, when I arrived here, I realized something that was very awkward to me, such as when a person or when you arrive at someone's apartment or door, you need to remove your shoes in order to enter. That sounds awkward to me, because back home, removing of shoes before you enter into someone's house, usually it is done when you visit a witch doctor. Or when you are approaching a sacred place, something that is considered as sacred. Yeah. That is when you do that. But here, it's a must somehow. Eventually, to adjust and to follow the same direction.
And now, when you enter your own house, you have to remove your shoes.
Definitely.
Most likely. Wonderful. It's fresh, actually, with the heat that we use here. But I talked about this earlier in another program that I was traveling to Myanmar for our distance learning center, and I found something actually that shocked me beyond what your shock was, and this was that they remove shoes when they enter the church. Everybody who goes to church will remove their shoes and leave them outside, and I was scheduled to preach. I must tell you that it was one of the most uncomfortable sermons I've ever had, because I had never in my whole life until now, that's the only time where I preached without shoes on. I felt very, very awkward. But as I started reflecting on it in the afternoon, I said, why is it that we will remove our shoes off when we enter a house, but not remove our shoes when we enter God's temple? It hit me. And until now, I still struggle with that. I learned that lesson from there. So it is true, in some cultures, you have to keep your shoes, and other cultures, we do not. And this can be, it's like, nobody will tell you that. If you go to somebody's house where you have to remove the shoes, and you didn't know that we have to remove the shoes, people may just look at you and say, no, you shouldn't have the shoes. But you do not know that the shoes should be removed. So it's kind of a taboo in a way that it's a prohibition, but nobody tells you about it because it's like common knowledge, but they don't want to offend you also to tell you, come on, remove your shoes. Oh, he's a pastor, we cannot tell him. He's doing a PhD at IAS. We cannot tell him anything. Blessing.
Asking personal questions to people you hardly know. For example, you just met me and you don't even ask for my name. You're asking how old am I. For me, I don't even tell my friends sometimes my age. Not to talk of somebody that I don't really know. In my country, it's a no-no. You just don't ask people their age. There are some people you could be friends for years and you don't even know who they are. Because for you, age doesn't matter. We're just friends. The age is nothing. But here you just come, hello, how old are you? I'm like, no, I'm not telling you.
And something that we know about taboos is that it is something that is everybody believes in it, everybody does it, but nobody actually explains to you why they do what they do or why they don't do what they don't do. It's a prohibition. Everybody knows it, except the people who are from the other culture. And here at IAS, we come from many different cultures. And this, many times we offend people because of the taboos that they believe in from their culture. It makes perfect sense for people from their culture. But in your culture, it's nothing. When we were growing up, I heard a story like this from Pastor Dan when he preached here once, and he preached in Visaya here. He shared with us something that I could relate to. When we were little kids, if you saw a white man, you would run away because white men eat black people. And then you go to the Philippines, the Filipinos run away from black people because black people eat Filipinos. And I wonder who eats the white man. These are taboos. And as we heard in the introduction, sometimes talking about taboos can be also a taboo. And right now, I know some of you are feeling very uncomfortable. But you know what? We need to talk about it. Because this is how we are going to actually understand each other. and be able to communicate. And when somebody does something, we know where they're coming from. Even if we have not verbalized these things in public, guess what? People talk about it in private. He came, we invited him, and he came with his shoes in our house. Couldn't he see that the shoes were left out? He's doing a PhD in education. He could have seen the shoes outside. He doesn't know that we should leave the shoes outside. And it's the platform where we can talk about that. Another taboo, Pastor, Dr. Alaisa.
One thing that shocked me, one time I went to the Sabbath school class, the babies class. I saw one lady who had just given birth during the week, bringing a baby who was less than 1 week to church. And I saw it's very common. Someone can bring a baby who's like just less than 1 week, 2 weeks. In my culture, a baby can stay in the house maybe for 6 weeks. Even in some places, you are not even allowed to dry the baby's clothes outside. In some places, people dry the baby's clothes inside when the baby is still less than 3 months. So the baby does not come out, or the clothes are not dried outside. So to find someone coming in a public place with a baby less than 1 week, and the mother is just giving the baby to everyone, it's like... I was surprised, but of course.
Dr. Alaisa, I wouldn't have noticed that one at all. And you see the importance of this platform. We're learning from one another. So if you happen to come from a culture like Dr. Alaisa's culture, don't mind it, because other people don't care. And if ever Dr. Alaisa has another baby, please don't expect her to hand over her baby to you within 2 weeks. If she says no, leave her alone, because she has something dear to her that she grew up with, that she firmly believes in. Pastor Dan.
This is a taboo in my country, I believe, but I love it so much. It is hugging and kissing. I was surprised here when, especially, some of the women and the youth, when they greet, they will hug you and kiss you here on the cheek. I love this taboo. Because I know in my country it has broken many marriages. Many marriages. People fighting. Why is he fighting? Because somebody kissed my husband on the cheek. And I saw him hugging with another. So when I was learning this, somebody greet me and say, hi, and he's bringing the cheek. I'm not bringing because it is not allowed. Then my wife say, why didn't you? He wanted to kiss. Oh, really? So next time I do it, hug, and I kiss. It feels so nice. So it's a taboo, but I'm so happy that we can do it here at IS.
We hope that your wife is around. Yes, she is. And that is what I like with Pastor Dan. He can never say 2 sentences without making things sound really beautiful.
I have also another, I don't know if I have time.
Yes, please.
Another one is, if you're living, here they have living cell. In my country, it is living giving. I wonder, when people are living, even the shoeless, they also sell it. But when you're living, you give. You give. So you go, you also have many blessings. But here you saw this, everything, even the plate, the cup, is also put the 100 pesos, even 20 pesos. So this is like a taboo also.
Wow. Welcome to the United Nations of the Adventists. IAS is the United Nations of the Adventists. Obviously, if you are sent to Uganda as a missionary, do not do a yard sale or garage sale. Please donate. But Pastor Dan, if you are in the US, please prepare your money to buy. Even if it's cheap, we still want to make a little bit of buck out of the stuff that we have spent too much money on. Let's go to another question. How have you effectively dealt with these taboo issues that you have seen here at IS or in the Philippines? I know some of you have traveled around the Philippines. How have you dealt with things that go against, something that's like taboo? Let's start with Pastor Dan. When people come and hug you and maybe subsequently kiss you, how do you deal with that on a serious note this time?
First of all, as a missionary, I contextualize. I have to get along. And some of these taboos also are good. In my country, you do not sit on top of a car. When you come to Philippines, most people say in the rural areas, people love to sit on the top. They call it top load. They come on the jeep, they don't run in front, they sit on top. And inside, they put the bananas and the goats inside. In my country, put the goats and bananas on top, and people sit inside. But it's nice. So when I come, everybody loves on top, so I also go on top. So I get along. For example, in my college, there are different rooms. When you go to a Korean room, you have to keep quiet and be serious. When you go to a Filipino room, you can shout and jump wherever you like. And when you're going out, you can take any slippers. That's a Filipino room. In a Korean room, you have to have permission. So when I go in a Korean room, I'm serious. Like everybody also. When I go in the Filipino room, I jump and shout. So I just get along, and that's how I try to...
You adapt to what is there. You don't try to impose your own beliefs on other people. Let's jump to Dr. Eliza at this point.
For me, I've just learned to tolerate people as they are. And then knowing that you are at a place where you have more than 70 countries represented, you cannot in any way impose your culture or your beliefs. You just have to take people as they are. So I've just accepted the things, like you can find, like what Blessing was saying, I have students who ask me my age, first day of class. People will ask you, so how old are you? You go to a DLC, the students ask you your age, or they will start calling you your first name on first name basis. In my country, if someone is married or older than you, you cannot call them by first name. So, but okay, I've just realized, okay, so if a student asks me my age, okay, I'll tell them my age. If the student wants to call me by my name, it's okay. I've accepted that. That's what they come from a culture which does that.
Adaptation again, that is happening. Let's go to Pastor Oswald.
Now, for us, for me and my family, yes, when we arrived here, it was a disturbing thing to see people. Each time you arrive at people's house, you remove shoes. But now, for the past 4.5 years, we have also adjusted and adapted to the culture that is here. Removing shoes, it's no longer a problem. Rather, even at home, children, when they sometimes forget, we remind them, remember to leave your shoes outside. This shows adjustment has taken place in us, and now we are following.
Okay. One thing I'm getting consistently is adjustment. You still have your individuality. You still believe in whatever you grew up with. But when you're in a new place, you learn to follow what is acceptable there, especially that when you're in a new place, you are most likely the minority. If you're from Zimbabwe, the Zimbabweans are not the majority here. If you come from China, the Chinese are not the majority. Everybody's a minority, and so we would try to see what is there. So let's move to the next question, since we found the common answer here. And I'm going to ask Ruth and Blessing to help us with this one. As we reflect at the taboos in your own culture of origin, what do you think your people should change? Sometimes this happens. After you have come to IS you have been in IS for a year or two, you start seeing things in your own culture that were like, wait a minute, why do people even believe this? Why do people even behave like this? So when you look back, what do you see as something that could be changed? Let's start with you.
Okay, I will talk about what I talked about first as a taboo in my place. I think what is practiced in IS is good, and we should adapt to it. I say this because, first of all, when somebody comes to your door, they knock at your door. They must be having an urgency. They could be in a hurry. So don't force people to come inside, sit, talk, give them food or a drink, and then you get to listen to what they want to say. In my culture, again, there's a saying that says that if you go to ask for a hoe to go to the farm, please ask for the hoe and go, because somebody else must come, ask for it when you're still eating, and then they take it before you. So I think people should just adjust to, especially how the life is moving, how things have changed. Things have really changed. There's no time for sitting down and chatting and eating, and then you come to say whatever you wanted later. You might say it, and then you realize that you will not get it. And you've wasted all this time. You'd have gone somewhere else and gotten it before that. So it's sort of, should I say, time wasting, but in a polite way. But otherwise, people should also come in if they have time. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Let's go to Blessing.
The taboos in my culture that I feel they should change, it's not something that I see around IS. But as I reflect on taboos, I think this is something my culture needs to work on. When they say something is a taboo, sometimes they give some reasons, and we're like, that's not logical. So if they're going to say something is not good, you should give the logical reason. For example, a taboo, one thing that is considered a taboo is for a pregnant woman to walk when it's noon, like between 12 and at noon to like 3 p.m. They said if she walks at noon that time, that evil spirits will come and deform a baby, something like that. Oh. But maybe that's not the logical
So the evil
reason.
spirits in Nigeria, they walk around at noon.
I don't know. But for me, I say, yeah, maybe that time is very hot and it's not a good time for a pregnant woman to walk around. You can give a logical reason for that, not just saying evil spirit to come and deform the baby. Somebody may walk at that time and nothing happens to a baby when it's born. So they don't believe it anymore. And it's like, the point of a taboo is to keep our social unity, but then it gets broken when people don't believe the illogical reason. So I think give a logical reason, and there are many times that there is a logical reason for a taboo, so we should give that instead of just saying it's a taboo.
Thank you. That is a scientific explanation, and I buy into it. A lot of the things that we do, for example, if somebody insists that, I don't understand why I should remove my shoes to enter your house, how about you explain to them, listen, we're trying to keep the germs outside? Wouldn't that be something that, I never thought about that. Because here, when it's hard, we want to even lie down on the floor and cement is so nice. I think that would be a lot easier to convince somebody who didn't grow up with that. But to tell the person, no, you just have to remove them because you are here in my house and I just don't want you to have your shoes. That will be difficult for somebody who didn't grow up with that. I know sometimes it's a little disturbing when somebody, they have been outside in the rain and it's muddy and, just enter the house and there's carpet there and things. That's a little too much. But I think we have something like explanation, logical, scientific explanation like that. It can help us to avoid a lot of misunderstanding. I'm really tempted to ask you, Pastor Dan, is there anything at all that we can change in Uganda? I think Ugandan culture is perfect. There's nothing to change.
I think, for example, kissing and hugging, I think, because even doctors prove it, that a hug a day keeps a doctor away. I think we should adapt this and, begin hugging and, kissing, because it keeps us alive. And leaving sail, I think we should begin sailing. Because maybe this is why we are poor. Because the other guys are rich, they already sell, they have money. Maybe we need to begin selling. Maybe the last one I think is, for example, in my place, men do not wash clothes and go in the kitchen and all those. So women do all that. But when I came here, I realized I have to do the opposite. That's why I'm afraid to go back right now. In my place, when somebody would do that, a man wash clothes. I remember one time we saw our headmaster doing that. We went and we thought he was bewitched. But when I came here, I had to do it, and I realized it's very sweet. One, it keeps my wife younger and so beautiful.
Nice. Thank you so much, Pastor Dan. Let's go to another question, because he has said it all. We all have something that when we look back, we feel we can actually change. I've talked to some graduates of IAS. When they go back, especially those on the African continent, and they start at the beginning, they try to implement some of the things they were doing here at IAS. Within the first few weeks, they are okay. But after that, people start harassing them. Say, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why? Just like this washing and the cooking. And say, why? We thought you were going to do a PhD and you come back, your brain is really distorted. And so that is a challenge that people have to live with. And some have decided to stick with that and slowly start changing, improving their own culture, because there is no perfect culture. Everybody can learn something good from somebody else. Let's go to another question, and I want Pastor Oswald to be the first one to answer this one. What things are you doing here at IAS today that you wouldn't do at all in your culture of origin, if any?
One thing that we are doing right now, that we never thought to do, is allowing our girl child to put on pants and walk around. Back home, that's not how things are done. Girls are supposed to be in skirts. Women are supposed to be in skirts. Anything outside shorts or trousers are considered as immoral. Here at IAS, we never thought we would do that, but for the sake of realizing, okay, this is the environment, we adjusted and accommodated her to do that kind of a thing. But when we go home, this thing is not there.
All right. I think some cultures, some of us can relate to what he just said. In some cultures, definitely women are not yet allowed, especially Christian or / Adventist women are not yet allowed to wear pants. Let's go to Blessing. What is it you're doing here that in Nigeria that would be a no-no?
Calling certain people by names. Oh, yes. Because for me, in my culture, sometimes once somebody is a year older than you, they don't allow you call them by name.
1 year older than you?
1 year. They will tell you cannot buy that year in the market, so don't call me
Wait a minute. But somebody was telling us here that you don't ask age. How do you know somebody's older than you by 1 year? Because 1 year you don't know. From the face, the looks, you cannot tell this person is 1 year older than me. So how do you know that?
They'll tell you I'm older than you because they know they were born before you. If it's in an environment where you grew, you grew up with them.
Okay.
But if it's in other places, I don't know. There are sometimes you just kind of look at somebody. I think this person is older than me.
Wow.
So there's some people you're just not. But for me, even sometimes I want to call this person, ma'am, this, and like, no, Blessing, don't do that. Okay, I'll call you by your name because you asked me. But sometimes I still feel, but well, since you're okay with it, then I have to be okay with it.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Ruth.
Okay, one thing I do in IAS that I never used to do back home, probably because of one, culture, and two, the nature of the work my husband was doing. Now I allow him in the kitchen. But before, and especially back in the village, it is difficult for me to have him in the kitchen because everybody will question what is happening. Is either I'm becoming too strong, like being the head of the house.
A Kenyan woman should never be strong. She should be weak, all right?
No, we should not be too strong compared to our husbands. We consider them the head of the house. So that is one thing I really had to adjust to because of how life is in this IS. You cannot do everything by yourself. And I thank God that he accepted. And he comes to the kitchen easily. When the person who arrives home first will go into the kitchen and cook. But naturally, back home, men would wait until the woman comes. Yeah.
Let me just pick on that just very slightly. We all come from different cultures. Some come from cultures where men and women can cook. Others maybe only men cook, and other places only women cook. Let me just make a statement for the sake of IAS. Most of you here, or most of us here, we're either working or studying. And you find husband and wife studying. If you came from a culture where the role of cooking or the household chores are for one gender, try to be a little bit flexible when you are here at IAS. because it's the reality of life here at IS. We depend on each other. It is a good thing to help your spouse if you're husband and wife. And if you're roommates and you come from different countries, it's good to help each other. You may continue with what you have to continue with when you go back to your country. If that's what it must be, that's fine. But while you're here, please help each other. Just carry the burden together so that you will be able to support each other, because it can be really, really tough. I know this because I've gone through this myself. I was studying full-time and working, and my wife was also studying and working. She was studying full-time and working. The only way it will work is if both of you are working together. I'm not saying this to offend any culture. I'm saying this from the practicality perspective. Let's go to Dr. Eliza.
I guess that issue of the roles in the house. But one thing that I would add on would be, I would not have my husband wash his hands at the sink like we do now. Back in my place, I remember there's a time my maternal grandmother visited me. As I was serving my husband, I just served him food in a plate which was not covered. So to her, it was like you are disrespecting your husband to serve him in a plate which is not covered. And now more so, like this day, coming here, I do not put water in a jug, in the dish. So when I'm serving people, I have to put water in a jug and wash your hands. So now my husband just goes to the sink, he washes his own hands and like that. So that's the one thing that I will not do, just to tell him, wash your hands by the sink. And most of the water used to be warm. I cannot let him wash his hands with cold water. That's disrespecting the men of the house. And so like this thing of me sitting on the computer and he's bathing the children, he's cooking, is that I will not do. Sometimes I joke with him that I'm very lucky. If my grandmother was here, she can slap me and say, how can you sit there and your husband is doing that?
She will actually curse you right there. Wonderful. I don't know about you in the audience, but I'm getting hit by a lot of the statements people are sharing here. There's just too much that we do not know. And I wish everybody, all the community of IS was here this afternoon. We're going to the next question, and the blessing will be the first one to answer that. Can you tell me of a taboo that seems to be accepted here by people at IS? It is like everybody seems to accept that, but it's like, why? And nobody stops to actually question why. Everybody just believes that.
It's something we've all been talking about the roles. In my culture, the general culture is a taboo for men to do certain things. But then in IS, it's perfectly fine. And we're even asking, please do this because it helps the family. It brings happiness to everybody. So yes, men helping around in the house, going to the market, washing, cooking, stuff like that. In the general culture of my country, it's not a good thing.
I think that this is more of, if I may generalize, allow me to do that. I think this is a common thing in the Eastern cultures, where men there's a tendency for men not to be involved in the Christian and household chores. And I think this comes from the historical background where men were supposed to be out there in the farm working hard the whole day, tilling and cutting trees and hunting and all these things. Unfortunately, they're not doing that anymore. But they still want to keep those practices from the past. Okay, let's go back to Pastor Oswald. Can you tell me of a taboo that seems to be perfectly acceptable here by most people?
Yeah, generally, this is the issue of roles, of family roles. It looks like here there are no boundaries. Anyone can do anything for the sake of convenience and life to move on. Back home, it is not like that. There are defined roles for specific people, specific gender in a family.
So people are practical here. They see the reality and they adapt to that reality. They try to forget a little bit about their taboos, their superstitions and everything and just face the reality. Pastor Dan, please tell us something.
I think still in the same line, women can also sometimes be like husbands in the house. Sometimes, you might not think who is higher, who is lower. I think it's very acceptable. Like husband and wife, they're like brothers and sisters. And sometimes women can have more authority, if I say, more power than men, just as you see it, which like in my place something very unacceptable. In fact, one thing I have allowed to tolerate here is for my wife to correct me. In my country, I cannot imagine that my wife correcting me. But this one...
You're supposed to know everything, right?
Sorry?
You're supposed to know everything in your country.
I know everything.
Yeah. And you get to IAS, you don't know anything.
Before I married her. But the mistake that I did not know, because in my country it is a taboo to marry a woman who is more intelligent than you. And I did not know. I found out when it was too late that my wife was smarter than me. And much more that she's AB English. Yeah. Every time I preach, I have more than 30 missed words, and she has to write them down. And I have accepted that. In my country, I can never accept that.
You need to watch out because she's getting a degree in TESOL now.
Yes. So this has been so much accepted here.
Something that Pastor Dan has highlighted here is that because of this practicality that we live with here at IAS, in a way, from the cultures, people from cultures where they were male-dominant cultures, it is in a way empowering women. Women are being empowered here at IAS by sharing their responsibilities in the house. And I think that's something beautiful that IAS is achieving. Even if it's something that we probably don't preach and teach in the classroom, but people are picking up on that from one another as they observe, instead of the woman being the only one going to the market, but now she said, hey, I saw such and such. Oh, that man is going, Pastor Mbiri is going to the market. Pastor Oswald is going to the market. I saw Dr. Dorf also going to the market. I should also go to the market. And so we start learning from one another, and I'm assuming that from cultures where men were extremely dominant, all-knowing men who came here, I think they have more communication, if not better communication with their wives, because now they have empowered them. I've seen men in the seminary sending their wives to the graduate school to study public health, education, or business, to allow a woman to also study just like them. Something is changing, and we need to continue to go in that direction. We're going to go to the last question because our time is almost up. How should we react to someone who believes in taboos that we don't believe in? And this is our last question. I'm going to start with Ruth, and then we go that way.
Okay, in my opinion, I think we should accept. If somebody believes in a taboo that we don't believe in, we should not condemn them at all, because that is right in their side, and it's wrong in my side. And we should also consider the environment. I cannot start correcting people in IAS that please don't come into the house with shoes, or don't come into the house with shoes when they believe otherwise. I cannot force people to come into the house if they didn't want to come in. Yeah? I cannot force people again not to come in if they want to come in. You leave people free to do what is acceptable to them and what they feel comfortable with.
Can I add just a tiny little bit? As long as it's not conflicting with the biblical principles.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's where we go wrong sometimes. That's their culture. They can do that. They're living together in an apartment. They're not married. Yeah, that's their culture. No, IS does not condone that. IS does not condone that. It may be a cultural practice, but is that biblically acceptable? It's not. And so for that one, we will still say no to that. Thank you so much. Let's go to Dr. Eliza. 1 minute.
I think being open-minded will help you not to be annoyed by small things, which you consider as a taboo. Of course, you mentioned about principles which are biblical. There are issues, for example, like dressing, even in the IS church. To some of us, it would be you go to a church, even the deaconesses will give you a cloth to cover yourself or send you back home to dress properly. So coming to this church, IS church, where people come with whatever things that they want, you just have to be open-minded and say, okay, we are all going to heaven, and God accepts people as they are. Maybe our levels of faith, we are at different levels of faith. Yeah.
And again, on this one, looking at it closely, you'll find that something that is a dress that is acceptable in one culture, it's not acceptable. We have had a show here where somebody was talking about our brethren from Asia Pacific who wear something like a skirt, which would be unacceptable in some cultures. In fact, if somebody wore something like that in Uganda, I think they will not be allowed to enter even the church. But in that culture, it's the most appropriate thing to wear. And so, yes, again, we need to understand that, hey, maybe in their culture it's perfectly fine. Let's go to the next one.
If it's something that really gets to you and offends you, and you don't feel comfortable when you're around that person, I think it's okay to not be around them. I mean, there are other people you can be around. There are a lot of other people that have things that are similar to you that you can move with. It's not like you hate them or anything. It's just, if you can start, it's not, you just say hello to them when you see them. But when it comes to that thing, you can just move away and you don't really have to be close friends with them.
Okay, that's another strategy. Just avoid it so that you're not offended or offending anyone. Okay.
I think it's an opportunity to learn, to know why he doesn't believe in that, because it's a discovery. For example, last time my friend Pastor Samuel Mnogu, he comes and he holds my hands. We are walking, and I know here when you hold hands, you'll be considered, they call it biot. He doesn't know, so he holds, hello, Pastor Dan, hello, so he holds my hands. As we walk, I try to remove it, he holds it tight. I know people are looking at us, but later on when he learns it, he doesn't do it anymore. So I think it's an opportunity for us to learn why I don't believe, why I believe, and we improve that way.
Learning is very, very important. Accepting others, accepting that we are different, but also learning from them, taking time to actually ask them, why do you do what you do? So that you can learn and understand what is behind that. Let's go to the last one, Pastor Oswald.
There is always room for improvement. And for that reason, when we see people who behave and who have different values than us, it is important to acknowledge their diversity from our point of view, and also respect other people's way of life. In so doing, we have many things to learn and to unlearn. At the end of the day, it promotes harmony in the way we live.
Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, and those who are watching us. Thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you have picked up a few practical tips that you can use as you live with people with different taboos, different superstitions, different ideology than what you grew up with. If you have questions or comments or suggestions, please email us at united@is.edu. united@is.edu. That's where you send your questions if you have some. Until we meet again in the next program, we want to encourage you to remain united in diversity. Thank you so much for being with us, and let's put our hands together for participants.